Ko. Again, my name is Kiani Akina. I'm a current sophomore at the college studying environmental science and public policy. A lot of my research and focus here in undergrad has been around traditional ecological knowledge in Pacific Islander communities and other Indigenous communities as well. And so I guess to get into this question a little bit, it's much more nuanced than I guess it initially seems. And so I wanted to start with the general definition that I think is accepted by many conservation organizations and Americans, which is from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And they define a protected landscape as areas of national significance, which are characterized by the harmonious interaction of man, land, and water, while providing opportunities for public enjoyment through recreation, tourism, and other economic activities. And so I think there's some crucial things that can be improved with this definition and maybe even redefined. But just for today, I want to focus on one piece of it, and it's the last part, which is providing opportunities for public enjoyment through recreation, tourism, and other economic activities. So many Indigenous peoples, including Native Hawaiians, which I'm Kanaka Maoli from the Ahupua'a of Ko'olauloa. And so we understand that we as humans, we can't own land. Rather, we're in a familial relationship with one another. And in Hawaii, we regard land as our kupuna, or our elder or ancestor. And we understand this through the kumulipo, which I actually have a copy of it right here. And this is our Hawaiian creation story. And so it was traditionally passed down through oli or chant. But today, obviously, we have it written down in Hawaiian and also in English, which I'll provide for anybody who's interested to read later. But through the kumulipo, we understand today that our relationship with protected landscapes is a familial one, because our ocean relatives and our land relatives came before us as humans. And our first relative is the coral in the ocean. And this is actually what drove me to do the restoration I did over after my freshman year in the summer of coral restoration and Indigenous science studies. And so through all of this, I think it's clear that our relationship with protected landscapes should not be contingent on the value that it can provide for human benefit, but instead we should be incentivized to protect and steward land because it's our elder, it's our predecessor, and therefore it also has the right to exist just like we do. And so I think while Half Earth is a bold and a very inspiring call to action, and a protected landscape, it sounds comforting, I think both are still very anthropocentric. And it presents a human-centric view of nature and an approach to protect lands and waters and oceans for the benefits of humans. So I think we need a more inclusive and a holistic approach to protecting biodiversity. So I want to introduce a framework instead of a definition for us to think about surrounding protected landscapes. And I want to look at it through the lens of human-nature relationships, which we describe as kin-centric ecology. As I mentioned earlier, Indigenous folks are in a reciprocal relationship in which humans are stewards to the land as their kin. And kin-centric ecology is an area of focus that Dr. Salmon has built upon for many years. And I believe that if we can create a societal shift that protects and embeds nature as a relative and a part of our identities, that we can better steward land and protect biodiversity. And I think kin-centric ecology is a place-based Indigenous practice, and the keyword is place-based, as it differs in different regions of the world. It differs on every Pacific island that you go to. It differs even within different parts of Hawaii, just as it differs with different Indigenous tribes here on the continent. But I want to acknowledge that if we are to incorporate this version of traditional ecological knowledge through kin-centric ecology, that we recognize its roots before implementing it into Western protection methods and Western science. And so I believe that most of us have heard some version of the factual statement that despite the fact that Indigenous people make up just 5% of the global population, they're protecting 80% of the world's remaining biodiversity. And this is evidence of just how crucial kin-centric ecology is, because this interconnection of kinship, of stewardship, and of knowledge is exactly what's protected 80% of the world's biodiversity. So implementing kincentric ecology into protected landscape stewardship will require working with and learning with Indigenous communities. And I don't pretend to have all the answers for how we can implement this into American policy and Western farming and biodiversity and conservation systems. But I know it's feasible, and I've seen it in practice in the Zapotec Nation, where over 300 Indigenous environmental stewards are applying community-based forest management to protect their forests from illegal deforestation and logging. And I've also seen it in Hawaii through community subsistence farming, with fishing and with taro farms.